everybody? Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button down there. There's a PayPal link for anybody that wants to share some love. Always appreciated. And of course, the StreamYard link is there for anybody that wants to join the panel. And we're going to be talking about what is a TreasuryDirect registered account. And we got John with us tonight. How you doing tonight, John?
What's up, Keith? How you doing?
Hey, good, good. Yeah. Figured I better get back into doing some videos again. So we're going to talk about like I said, what is a TreasuryDirect account. I'm hoping we've got another guest that'll come up. I spoke to him on Facebook and he showed me some interesting stuff. And it's everything that I'm learning is lining up with what I've been proposing. It's just that there are certain steps along the way, and those have to be enumerated. So that's what I'm actually working on. I'm not posing any of this as any kind of remedy for anybody, except for the fact that my research shows me to do certain things. And as I'm moving forth and using this information, I'm lining them up in certain steps, and I'm being patient all along the way. So just bear with me as that patient goes along. I've been doing this 8 years. It's not going to happen overnight. But once we can trigger that mechanism of knowledge to direct that path of routing, which is truly the remedy, in my opinion, then we can start progressively moving forward. This is the A for V, your billing statements as coupons, all kinds of things like that, and taking the correct path capacity as that representative to let them know you know what you're doing and you can direct it. You have that authority, and it's only with knowledge.
Well, it sounds like a better job than the rep that we are now, which is just for a surety company. You know, that's a tough one.
Absolutely, and that's what we're working on changing. Is the fact that that representative capacity has to be fulfilled, because the person itself can't do anything for itself. So while the record lays certain presumptions, there are other presumptions that are taken hand in hand that cause confusion and commingling. And so when we realize that we can still effectuate that record in a beneficial manner and how to do so, we can start doing so more so at the beginning rather than waiting until we're 30, 40, 50 years old and finding out that it's already, because of that lack of knowledge, we've already screwed up our life, and now we have to fix it. So again, the true benefit, folks, is the knowledge. So let's take a look. And this says Electronic Code of Federal Regulations. Now, this is going to play important as it goes to the definitive paper bonds and stuff, such as the birth certificate, the official documents, all those things that they call documents that are securitized. And today, a document includes an electronic record. So Title 31, Money and Finance, Treasury, regulations relating to money and finance, Fiscal Service, Department of the Treasury, Subchapter A, Bureau of the Fiscal Service, regulations governing securities held in TreasuryDirect. General provisions governing securities held in TreasuryDirect. What is a Treasury registered, TreasuryDirect? Notice there's no space. It's TreasuryDirect. This is a trade name, and it's a registered trade name which has an account. A TreasuryDirect account is an online account, meaning an electronic account, maintained by us solely in your name, in which you may hold and conduct transactions in eligible book entry Treasury securities. Now, the eligible book entry Treasury securities are, like I said, the paper documents, the commercial paper that has information on it that they will enter into the electronic record, and that's an eligible book entry Treasury security, if it's so securitized through this Treasury Direct account. This is where the difference is. In the state blue sky securities laws, which the administrative courts use on their dockets, which are not courts of record, when they take that private data elements and they convert them to investment firm information as an investment in the court registry investment system, wherein those funds have to go to the Treasury and be held for federal holding or held in federal holding until the case is resolved. And that is when the securitization happens as it relates to those administrative courts. And they do have everything to do with it because, like I've said before, the administrative law judge works with the Social Security Administration in regards to the statistical elements that they use for their dockets.
One of the many trust actions they take, right, Keith?
Right. And I'll have to find it's in the Securities Programs Operations Manual. They talk about administrative law judges as it relates to that record. So let's look at the first thing here. And this is a set of definitions now. So primary account, as defined, without using the term definition, it says what is a Treasury Direct account? And then the Treasury Direct account has sub-accounts and sub-definitions that they use in that. Okay? And it says the primary account is the account that you establish when initially opening your Treasury Direct account. So if you have not had a communication with the Treasury Direct yet, then you have not opened such an account. Okay? So everything still remains a presumption. The primary account may contain the following Treasury securities. Pay attention to this, because we have to remember here when it relates to primary account that you establish. Mom already has a minor account. And unless she's opened a primary account with Treasury Direct, it remains a minor account. So the primary account is only when you establish when initially opening your Treasury Direct account. So if mom and dad never opened one, grandma and grandpa never opened one, great grandma and great grandpa never opened one, then there's no primary account yet except the Treasury Direct account. And they're only holding a minor account, which can be considered a custom account, linked account, or conversion account. And we'll get into those. So the primary account may contain following Treasury securities. Individual. So when mom gave birth under her minor account, it created another individual account. But that individual is still not a primary account because it's still being held under a minor account. This is what creates a lot of the commingling. Even one mistake where they move forward without a primary account and allow the states to use that name through that court registry investment system and hide the name and change it to their name as a pooled investment. This is how they get away with it. A primary account for an individual may contain Treasury securities purchased initially as book entry securities. So initially purchased initially as book entry securities. So the book entry security, again, is that paper document, whether it be a birth certificate, a certificate of title for an automobile or motor vehicle, whatever. Those are all commercial documents, commercial paper items that can be converted, negotiated, securitized, that are your personal holdings, registered. Remember, I said the birth certificate standards do not meet the minimum requirements because it is not registered in the United States, because it's registered in the state. And now you have custody of it. And remember, I said the Health and Human Services is the one that has the estate recovery program. So you got 3 birth certificates, and you hand them all back to them with a specific directive attached and a certifying qualifying evaluation or valuation, giving it a determined value of some sort. And this could inherently just be according to the record and what it shows as value. You don't have to name a specific amount, I don't think. It's just a matter of settlement with what's already established. Your employment record shows that you've been paying into the Social Security and IRS through installments, weekly, bi-monthly, or monthly, or even annual checks and salaries, that a portion of that was held back for taxes and for Social Security and federal insurance contributions. So you have a credit system there that's already established the evaluation of everything you brought in to a certain amount. You also have things that are called unearned income credits. You also have converted benefits, all kinds of things. So let's continue on. In single owner or owner with beneficiary, now we have a minor account with a beneficiary individual, which is another minor account, but it still fits in that category of owner with a beneficiary. Remember, mom is at one point got to be deemed a beneficiary. It was meant for her, even if mom and dad didn't qualify a primary account. Even the institution here qualifies that the individual was meant to be the beneficiary. And primary owner, not primary account. Again, in trust law, the beneficiary is deemed to be the primary owner. So we have owner with beneficiary is the nexus of that document of mom being the informant and giving a name of a beneficiary, an individual. It's just different language, folks. It's doing and saying and expressing the exact same thing. With secondary owner forms of registration. The birth certificate is a second owner form. Mom was the primary owner, and the beneficiary is yourself, that you can establish as a primary account to be the primary owner of, but the Treasury is the secondary owner. And it has a form of registration. Single owner, owner with beneficiary, and primary owner with secondary owner forms of registrations. And we'll also find out it has another one later on. Gifts of savings bonds that have not yet been delivered, and converted savings bonds that were transferred from the conversion-linked account. Now, I ordered a bond that I can convert to a savings bond or any other type of bond of indebtedness pursuant to terms of deposit in a financial institution who has already given credit or who is obligated to give credit, that were transferred from the conversion-linked account. I ordered it from the State Secretary, Bureau of Vital Statistics. It came from their account, the state account. That is the conversion-linked account. That is where the conversions happen, where they convert your private data elements to a performance of the functions of public office and use them as an asset on that side of the ledger. You're not being recognized as the principal. primary owner in trust. Entities. A primary account for an entity may contain Treasury securities purchased initially as book entry securities registered in the name of the entity and converted savings bonds in the name of the entity. So it's either a converted savings bond or a book entry security that was transferred from the conversion linked account. And it has the entity's name on it, the all caps name. Linked account. The linked account is an account that is separate account from your primary account. The Social Security account is linked, but is not open yet. But that is connected to your primary account. You use your primary account as a portal to open and access the linked account. You cannot have access and open that. You cannot open and access the Social Security account until you have a primary account as a portal to do so. This is the problem at the state level why nobody's getting remedy, in my opinion, according to my interpretation as to the way this is written. Please rebut me if you think I'm wrong. Healing Journeys. I've got 3 birth certificates that I ordered from the state based on my premise that I'm going to hand them over to the Health and Human Services for their obligation 1, and the valuation would be to collect up all and any credits and values that are owed me as a principal, including any and all investments and vestiges in the state's political subdivisions through the state ID that was a misidentification. Hospital records, all public clinic records, education records, any military records that were established when they rejected me upon the physical and entrance forms of the military for that selective service, all of it. Entire forensic audit. And we're going to get into that stuff in the next couple videos as I go over some IRS forms and the Postal Service obligation, capital, and audits. And that's going to be 3 birth certificates. 1 for them is relates to expenses incidental to transfer of title to the agency, and that agency is the Health and Human Services, to do the estate recovery as a matter of probating the estate out of the administrative hands. And then the other 2 are the expenses incidental to transfer of title to the United States for the automated clearinghouse that we're talking about right here, so they can settle all accounts and make sure all creditors are whole. And then that remainder, that's all those other credits that you have sitting there, unearned income tax credits, taxes that you paid that weren't proper taxes, you get those back, child support, all of the fines, fees, penalties technically should come back, and the forensic audit should show that. So you should get all your principal gain back, or all your principal vestige back, things that you were told that you had to put into that system when that was a misidentification and therefore a misappropriation. So then the third birth certificate is another transfer of title, expenses incidental to transfer of title to the Postal Service. They're the ones that are tied directly to the general ledger. And that is a United States estate account that properly belongs in the hands of the Postal Service under their obligation in capital. And their capital, it consists of the equity of the United States. So if you want equity, that's the equitable transfer of title to the proper equitable holder, not the states. So it's a matter of gathering up and salvation and resurrecting it into a new name. And so when you hand it to the Postal Service, it's a reversion in a merger under a new name of the estate trust. Keith Orland Little, FBU Estate Trust. It's no longer just Keith Orland Little. It's got qualifiers on them as applies to as justum generis, specifying the place, authority, qualifications. the truth, the evidence, the factual evidence showing that it is established. It doesn't have to be organized. It doesn't have to be licensed. It's established, and we see this in a lot of different codes. Establishment. It's established. Do you have to do anything further with it? No. What does it do if you establish it? It prevents others from using it against you. Now you have a direct path.
Keith, would this be under the banners of renunciation or novation?
Rather novation and repatriation, not expatriation, but repatriation and revenue. Use it against them. It's misidentified, therefore it's in the wrong venue. In any venue that requires this identification, because it's false, it's not qualified. However, we can give repentance and forgiveness so long as we can remedy it so that no person shall be held liable in any court. It's a matter of mistakes. That's it. Nobody did anything intentfully wrong. We were just not educated properly, and we propose that misidentification ourselves. Linked accounts include the following. Now pay attention. Custom account. A custom account is an account that is linked to your primary account. Use your primary account as the portal to open and access your custom account. You may informally designate a purpose for the custom account. For example, vacation fund. Vacation fund, is it taxable? Johnny's college fund, is it taxable? No, those are private definitions. They do not fit in the commercial definitions of what they premise their fund to be. Therefore, you're making, again, a justum generis, a specification that is supplemental to what they operate on. And they can't dismiss it. You have the power to designate such stuff. The designation as to purpose has no legal effect. What has the effect is that Johnny's college fund, the vacation fund, is under a primary account that is a trust account. And the TreasuryDirect, the Treasury is assigned the trustee. They are the transfer agent, and you are the one directing the transfers. Unless they can prove you are doing something unlawful, they can only protect the transactions. That's a must. That's their prior obligation. The registration of the securities held in the custom account determines ownership. Equity deems the beneficiary to be the true owner. I do, in fact, have a record from the state that they will qualify as the beneficiary. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I am holding it now. I get to create a primary account and place that security in a custom account. Once I get all accounts settled, I can get another birth certificate and set it up with the bank. However, I already have one setting with the Postal Service, the main judicial, administrative, financial institution, upon taxes are duly paid by stamps. You, as an individual owner, may use your custom account. Individual owner. Individual means a natural person. It is still a person, which means it is still a fiction. Therefore, you cannot be an individual. It says you. Oops. As an individual owner, still is a person. And that person as you is a individual who owes a debt to the United States. The debt you owe to the United States is only a correction of the records for the interest and principal. When you do that, that zeroes out the accounts. That's the automated clearinghouse. You cannot do that at the state level, only at the Treasury. Where you use your custom account to buy, redeem, and transfer securities that you own in single owner, owner with beneficiary, and primary owner with secondary owner forms. When you qualify yourself as a primary owner with secondary owner forms, you now have a primary obligation to a secondary obligor. Equity imputes an intent to fulfill an obligation. They have to fulfill their obligation under registering that security of the international protection of that person. That becomes their obligation. You, as an individual owner, may use your custom account to buy, redeem, and transfer securities that you own in single owner, owner with beneficiary, and primary owner with secondary owner forms of registration. So when we use these secondary owner forms of registration, there is a secondary obligation. Equity imputes an intent to fulfill an obligation. Make sure you know what their obligation is as relates to that registry. Birth registration is not had in the United States, only in the state. That's the wrong place to register it. An individual owner may also buy and deliver gift savings bonds from the custom account. An entity account manager acting on behalf of an entity may use the entity's custom account to buy, redeem, and transfer securities registered in the entity form of registration. There's the other form of registration they didn't mention up here. So now we have an entity form of registration that names the entity and is held by the very one that has that same, quote, name. No one else can do this. Minor account. A minor account is an account established by an individual custodian for an individual who has not yet reached the age of 18 years. Mom is the individual, and she establishes a minor account, which is an account established by an individual who does not have their own primary account and therefore is still considered a custodian. For an individual who has not yet reached the age of 18 years of age, this is the parentage. This is the ID through the state saying that you're a full-grown woman and you had a baby. Whether you got a baby daddy or not living with you or not makes no difference. You are a parent through a contract with the state. Nothing more, nothing less. That contract with the state was when you went to the hospital and registered at the front desk for a spell of illness in which you had labor pains and brought forth a baby and then signed certain documentation as an informant. Creating a minor account established by an individual who already has an account. You gave them your social security number as an individual, as a holder of a record, a custodian of a record. We do not permit an entity to open a minor account. It is only established. When you turn 18 and fill out the SS5, you now open a minor account with the state, where they authorize you with a card. Under the definition of credit card means any card, plate, coupon book, or other credit device used to obtain money, property, labor, or services on credit. And you are told to give out that social security number to public health clinics and hospitals and such, and even public education systems and various other clinics and things like that, where they do all these statistical research programs, so that you can obtain the funds, money, property, funds, labor, public service, and services, public service, on credit.
We're not supposed to give out the number either, right?
Nope. You are not supposed to give out the number. You are supposed to contact the Social Security Administration and fill out an SSA 89. So the person that's requesting the information must give you certain information as to why they are requesting it, and they must have a valid reason to request it such. And then you verify it with the Social Security Administration that they have a valid reason and nexus to do so. Without that, they are acquiring information through your idiocy. You're not supposed to be even having that number. You're not in performance of the functions of public office. You're not a resident. You are not a United States citizen. A minor account, a minor account is linked to the custodian's primary account. So the custodian has a linked account as a custodian, and it's linked to a primary account that hasn't been opened so they can access the conversion account. The minor is the owner of the securities, but the custodian controls the account on behalf of the minor. So if you are both the owner and the custodian, this is where in equity, the title law plays out. 1/9 of the law is legal title. 1/10 of the law is legal title. 9/10 of the law is equitable title. When legal title meets equitable title, the trust is collapsed. Do not let them play games and say they can't do this. You just have to make sure that you have the knowledge to know the details upon the collapsing of that trust. Again, that's that automated clearinghouse and transfer of titles, expenses incidental up the chain, so everybody can fulfill their obligation as equity imputes an intent to fulfill that obligation. And the obligation under the Capital of the Postal Service is the equity of the United States. So again, that tells me we're supposed to deal with the title in the hands of the Postal Service, and the United States has an obligation under them. And then, of course, the state recovery program, as it relates to United States estates, is the Health and Human Services, which is where that statistical jurisdiction record starts at the enumeration at birth, tying it all together. Conversion account means a linked account in Treasury Direct that contains only savings bonds that have been converted from definitive bonds to book entry bonds. This is those birth certificates that you can deposit with the Treasury as having been converted from definitive bonds, the paper bonds, the definitive bonds, and they've been converted by entering them in a special direct deposit account, the conversion account, so that they can then be converted to credit and extend credits. You set your terms. Payable on death, promissory notes, drafts or orders based on advanced deposit credits, whatever you need to. You establish the conversion, not them. That's what's happening. They're providing the conversion because you don't know. You have to learn how to take that definitive paper bond, put your terms and conditions to it, $250,000 as an investment in the local community. It's an extension of credit from this definitive bond as an electronic account. So if those account credits can be extended pursuant to my directive to this community for this project. Now, when the project is complete and everything's been, all the transactions are taken care of as a principal investor, all of the principal that is a income comes back to me, but because it's a private investment, there's no taxes. The gift is that you get my credit. Okay? C, closing account. Now, this is a contract term and condition with the Treasury Direct. They're telling you they hold the position that under this contract, if a Treasury Direct primary account and all associated linked accounts have had no holdings and no activity for a period of 2 years, we reserve the right to close the account along with all linked accounts. This is why you have to go through and do that correction of the accounts first through the Health and Human Services, so you can establish all those credits that are in fact sitting there. Okay, and notice it's at the end. They're telling you what the establishment has been made, and it's just a matter of directing the routing. And right now, the routing isn't directed right because it's handled by the state, and they're not recognizing you as a authorized representative in the right capacity. Your authorized representation is placing liabilities on the public record, not for discharging or set off or equity balancing according to equal consideration. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't be able to use that name. The use of the name alone is worth the value. So let's take a look at the next one. John, you got anything on that? Were you familiar with what a Treasury Direct account is and how the primary, minor, link, conversion, custom accounts and all that work?
Yeah, I didn't know much about them. I just thought those were for if you want to buy government securities.
Right, and that government security is that one that you're holding as a birth certificate. That's the most important one. You don't want to get involved in buying somebody else's securities and being surety for another man. However, you can be surety for your own, and that's that salvation process. That's all you're doing there. You're being surety for the man because he can't, or that person because it can't stand up for itself and it's being abused. And all you're doing is coming in righteously dividing the word of truth so that it can be used appropriately through the proper identification, which is a private identification, which means it's got to have a private holding and not an administrative holding under the state.
But isn't our social number, Keith, a TDA as it stands?
It's a tax identifying number.
Okay. All right. So even if the public site is open, it's still a tax ID then. Okay.
Right, and that's the misidentification. That's for public servants. That's for the performance of the functions of public office. I'm not being compensated in such a way that it would demand a tax. Everything I do is for free. If you feel like giving equal consideration in return, it will reverberate, and I will get it in one way or another. Whether I recognize it as being directly from you or not makes no difference to me. I am blessed and I get what I deserve. I have no desires. That's the materialistic realm. If I had a desire, like I said, I would start posting $250,000 bonds, 10 in a year, in this Treasury Direct account for $2.5 million. I think that's easy. $2.5 million supporting the community as my tax. Wouldn't that mean equal consideration? The community would then owe me $2.5 million. Who owes what? Now give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Give unto the Father what belongs to the Father. And the Father is all credit. All glory goes to him. So if they want to use a credit system, make sure that it's a true line of credit with a direct chain of title. That's what's wrong, the chain of title. It's a false patriot. So let's get on to the next one. And this is, come on, there we go, 31 CFR 363.6. The other one was 363.10. Now here it says, what special terms do I need to know to understand this part? So what we have to understand here is when you're doing this, you're establishing a contract with the Treasury. Contract terms and conditions required to implement statutes, executive orders. Equity imputes an intent to fulfill an obligation. So you have to understand their part in the obligation as that security goes. Like I said, in registration of a person, that is an international protection of person they have now taken upon. What special terms do I need to know to understand this part? Account means a Treasury Direct account, as described in 363.10 that we just saw. Authentication means confirming that the person accessing a Treasury Direct account is the same person whose identity was initially verified at account establishment. So the birth certificate is the initial verification when you establish the account. Authentication means confirming that the person accessing a Treasury Direct account is the same person whose identity was initially verified. So the birth certificate is the verification, and that's going to have attachments such as the enumeration of birth, Social Security card, selective service, all kinds of things, public education record. It's going to contain that statistical jurisdiction and all records pertinent to the identity of the individual. And it's the individual's name and number identify the record. All of those records are part of one account. All of those records are part of one account. Enumeration at birth. Establish all accounts through the state Social Security Administration. An agreement with the federal government, meaning there are contract terms and conditions required to implement it. Mom was not subject, yet through tactics of intimidation and a program of economic warfare, they induced her in a time of heightened sensitivities to sign official documentation as an informant without informing her properly as to the effects nor the intent. Automated clearinghouse, ACH, means a funds transfer system, not a deposit system. Two totally different things, folks. You have one system for deposits, and then through a conversion, you can transfer funds. Of the National Automated Clearinghouse Association provides for the interbank clearing of electronic entries for participating financial institutions. As depositors, you are deemed a participating financial institution. Very simple. That's the legal name. That's a resident, a United States citizen known as a United States business, a United States estate. Beneficiary refers to the second individual named in the registration of a definitive savings bond. It has to be in paper. Has to be in paper first. Has to be written down first. And then that definitive savings bond has to be registered, pledged. That birth certificate has the second individual named. The first individual named is a different individual altogether. A converted definitive savings bond, and you have the right to convert a definitive savings bond by putting your own terms, asserting your own contracting powers. In fact, that's what you need to do to establish the account. Or a book entry security purchased through the Treasury Direct system. So a book entry security is an electronic credit. You can purchase electronic credits. What is the interest and inflation on purchasing electronic credits? Again, that would be purchasing somebody else's credits rather than establishing that you are the pass-through of the original credits. Purchased through the Treasury Direct system, registered. Example, John Doe. Social Security number 123-45-6789. P.O.D. Payable on death to Joseph Doe. SSN 987-65-4321. Chain of title. Book entry security means a treasury security maintained by us in electronic or paperless form as a computer record. Book entry security is an electronic or paperless form as a computer record. It is in electronic form only. If you have a book entry security, I doubt you will have rights to the actual definitive paper security because it's not yours. It's not your name. Privacy Act steps in. Book entry security purchase in another's name is a investment. And that can be taxed. Business day means any day that funds may be settled. Any day that funds may be settled. This is why we use the zero balance accounts. At the end of the day, they're supposed to zero them out. Supposed to put in a projected amount for the day's business, and then at the end of the day, zero them out daily. An out of balance account in existence for 3 days, they have a responsibility as a postal service to reconcile that, research and reconcile that account with the general ledger. That's why we're dealing with the Treasury, the general ledger. Closed book period means a period of 4 business days prior to the date a scheduled marketable security interest and or maturity payment is made, during which time certain transactions will be delayed until after the closed book period is completed. And that's just simply to give them time to make sure it balances. Commercial book entry system refers to the book entry system in which you hold your Treasury securities, not someone else's. You're not supposed to be purchasing somebody else's securities, in which you hold your Treasury securities, which you can get at the state 10 per year. In a tiered system through securities intermediaries, such as financial institutions or brokerage firms. This is where you can take a financial institution or a brokerage firm and get that state security, pledge $250 value to it, and pledge it to the community through a tiered system of public funding. Now, if the local community is publicly funded through a private man rather than the federal government, does it also alleviate the debt obligation of the United States? Does that make sense, John?
Yep, that does.
When you have the knowledge and education to step up and do so, you are doing your part in repatriating and becoming the man that says, no, it's not a matter of continuing obligation against the United States. It's a matter of recognizing who the creditors are, and that's we the people. And when that is done, more and more we the people will stand up, and it will do nothing but get stronger and stronger. And the credit system of the United States will get stronger because the debt will be alleviated more and more. And again, that's an educational basis. The American average reading comprehension is 7th or 8th grade reading comprehension, and that's the problem. We have to up the intellect game. Court means a court of law with jurisdiction over the parties and the subject matter. That means you have to have a contract. If you want the Postal Service as a judicial officer department, which is a neutral and independent forum within the United States Postal Service, who holds the obligation of equity, and you are seeking equity, you need to create an account with the Postal Service as a matter of equity imputes an intent to fulfill an obligation. In equal station, you are going to hold them to their obligation of the United States to make sure that balance is kept accurate. Conversion account means a linked account in TreasuryDirect that contains only savings bonds that have been converted from definitive bonds to book entry bonds. So you end up with a custom linked account for conversions as a conversion account. It's customized by you and linked in the TreasuryDirect that contains only savings bonds that you issued that have been converted from the definitive bonds to book entry bonds. And the only definitive bonds you should be entering would be your own. You get caught entering somebody else's definitive bonds, you better know what you're doing as a transfer agent, because that's what you're acting like then. Converted savings bond means a savings bond originally issued as a definitive bond that has been surrendered to us and converted to a book entry savings bond to be maintained by the Treasury solely as a computer record. So, it is a definitive bond. Obligations and other securities of the United States, first three words says includes all bonds. So in paper form, definitively, the birth certificate is in bond form, paper-wise, and has a commercial value according to its bonded weight. And of course, the nice little design on it with the nice two seals and the two signatures qualifying it under the full faith and credit of the United States. And equity imputes an intent to fulfill an obligation, and therefore the state governor and the county registrar must be acting in equity as regards to their trustee positions. And I am glad to surrender all three of them to Health and Human Services to correct that record, so I can then surrender them to the United States Treasury, one of which is supposed to go to the United States Treasury under this as a converted savings bond for the automated clearinghouse transactions. For the beneficiary, payable on death. I ain't dead yet, so I ain't got to pay. Why? Because it's the estate that pays. Until then, I follow the same obligation as everybody else pursuant to credit card. Means any card, plate, coupon book, or other credit device used to obtain money, property, labor, or services on credit. And that includes any blank piece of paper known as commercial paper, no matter what its bonded weight. You still with me, John?
Yeah, and I'll just throw in that if there's living data on the note, you don't have to have it authenticated.
Right. That's why I say your word is your bond. You don't have to authenticate the birth certificate. You just surrender it. And then there's an authentication process. And that's the verification that the one that's dealing in those securities is the one that was identified as an establishment of the account. So when you do that, that's the establishment that you're the same because you carry the same name. And again, that's why I say no one else should be doing this in somebody else's name. So the next one is the converting co-owner. Is the co-owner the secondary owner? Remember we talked about primary owner and secondary owner? And that secondary owner doesn't have authorization to do what isn't granted by the primary owner. Just because he thinks he does doesn't mean he does. Who initiates and completes the transaction to convert a definitive savings bond to a book entry bond through his or her TreasuryDirect account. This is the state and local government securities at the municipal level. The resident and United States citizen determination through the use of that address as a resident for income tax purposes. See, the Postal Service and the Treasury work together. That's how they keep track of residents and individuals, records maintained on individuals, 5 U.S.C. 552A, considered employees. And the insurance is offered through the through the Postal Service, not Social Security. Read the 2022 United States Postal Service Reform Act. 90% of it is about buying and selling insurance as postal service workers, known as common carriers or contract postal or contract officers. What do you think a resident is? It's just a designation to involve yourself in the same contracts by using proprietary information of the Postal Service, the address, and claiming you're an agent of the Postal Service because you filled out a change of address form, one of their official documentations, as if though that lays a good enough presumption that you're qualified. Co-owner means either of the persons named in the registration of a definitive or converted definitive savings bond. Registered example, John Doe S. or Joseph Doe. Co-owner. So even if the co-owner doesn't have a primary account and still has a minor account, they're still subsisting off that minor account, and the Treasury Direct will still regulate it without a primary account. But it's only going to go pursuant to their directive, and that's at a state settlement when you die. Any debts, they're going to go through with that death certificate and collect up the statistical record and pay off all the creditors upon your estate. They're going to get paid. Custodian of a minor account means a person who opens account on behalf of the minor. See 363.27 for more information about minor accounts. Custom account means an account that you establish for a specific purpose. Keith Lord Little, FBU, estate trust account that is open or that is linked to your primary account. You use your primary account as the portal to open and access your custom linked account. See 36310 for more information about custom accounts. This would be your local bank account or the post office. You can open an account with the post office. I've discussed this before, and we really should do some more research on that because the post office wants to slack in their obligation under that. See, if they're obligated to equity, then they're obligated to, as the money changers of gold and silver, and those scales. See, they're the true money changers, folks, and you can't convince me any different. Jeremiah 51:31, one post shall run to meet another. Messenger to messenger, shewing unto the king of Babylon that the city is taken at the other end. Your jurisdiction no longer applies. I have an equal station. I have a supplemental accounting that brings a sort of equality when it comes to that equity and imputing that either one of us has an obligation pursuant to the public service and the good of the people. Are you doing it for the good of your wallet, or are you doing it for the good of the people? See, this is separating the wheat from the chaff. This is giving unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and what belongs to the Father, that which belongs to the Father. Definitive security means a treasury security held in paper form. That's what I told you. Definitive security means a treasury security held in paper form. Why do you think it has to be held in paper form? It's got the attachments to it. The valuation with the stamp, cross-signed and dated for indemnification and fidelity with the Postal Service, qualifying the custom directive also attached. D-Link means the online process by which all securities contained within the minor linked account are moved to the minor's primary Treasury Direct account, and the linked account is deactivated. So again, the 3 birth certificates, one going, or all 3 going to the Health and Human Services, but one with a special directive to the Health and Human Services pursuant to this. Gathering up all the minor securities. And then moving them to the primary TreasuryDirect account. It's a directive to transfer. The beneficiary can give such directive as the true owner. And that's all we're doing. Delivery means moving a minimum amount of $25, consisting of principal and proportionate interest, of a security held as a gift from the account of the purchaser to the account of the recipient. So I purchased 3 birth certificates. Each of them cost me $25 of the security held as a gift from the account of mine, the state Social Security account, calling up the state Secretary of State and ordering it from them, from the state's Bureau of Vital Statistics, the original state's statistical jurisdiction, which created all of this. They are the creator. And again, they are regulated by the Department of Commerce. Therefore, there is a minimum amount of $25 that I purchased, which was held as a gift. And if it was held as a gift, and I had to purchase that gift, I now surrender it to the account of the recipient, qualifying the recipient in a new name, and providing that in fact is myself. As the entitled or proper one of capacity of registrant. Entity means any owner of a TreasuryDirect account that is not an individual. Entity is a sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation, limited liability company, or professional limited liability company, trust, the estate of a decedent, or the estate of a living person, such as an incompetent or minor. Such as, but not necessarily the thing, incompetent or a minor. Entity account manager is the individual who initially opens the Treasury account for an entity or his or her replacement, who is authorized by the entity to act alone or on its behalf to open, access, and conduct transactions with respect to the account, and who certifies that he or she is so authorized. Again, if it's your name on the birth certificate, Keith Orland Little, and you create the new entity as a replacement, you yourself are the only one that could possibly be authorized by the entity to act alone on its behalf to open, access, and conduct transactions. Even the state, under its presumption, must have your primary agreement as a secondary owner. This is logic and reason, folks. Federal Reserve Bank means a Federal Reserve Bank or branch. Final maturity, financial institution or depository financial entity or institution means an entity described in 12 U.S.C. 461, the banking and finance, or banking, Gift means a treasury security purchased for or transferred to an intended recipient without consideration. I gave a $25 consideration and I have receipts caused to be issued by the commanding officer, the governor, for $25 each. So it is not a gift. Incompetent individual or incompetent person means an individual, and again, that relates to that you and person and everything else. Individual is a natural person, yet a natural person is still a person, and you is an individual who owes a debt to the United States. It's all circular. It's a big loop. Who has been declared by a court to be legally incompetent, incapacitated, or otherwise unable to manage his or her financial affairs. And right there we go. Individual means a natural person. How can an individual be you if it means a natural person? And a person, no matter what you put before it, means it is a fiction. Interest on a savings bond means the difference between the purchase price and the redemption value of the bond. So when I put that $25 bond in the hands of the Health and Human Services Estate Recovery Program to gather all those up to transfer them with title to the United States for automatic clearing so that there remains a reversion, that's the settlement. That's the difference between the purchase price and the redemption value of the bond, is the interest that I have in all of those accounts. Legacy TreasuryDirect system is a non-internet based book entry system maintained by Treasury since 1986. And that was the 20-year period where they were entering the definitive paper forms of birth certificates and such between 1986 and 2006 when they enacted the Electronic Records Act. For holding and conducting permitted transactions in marketable Treasury securities directly with Treasury as book entry products. So when you give them one of your bonds with your interest as a marketable security for $250,000, it's a book entry product of yours as a primary owner. You're the principal. And it becomes a marketable Treasury security as a gift to them so that as a financial institution, they can follow the conversion directive to convert it to credits and issue the credits appropriately according to the goodwill, good faith directive of a gift unto the community. Legal guardian of a minor or incompetent person refers to the court-appointed or otherwise qualified person, regardless of title, who is legally authorized to act for the minor or incompetent individual, and the individual's name and number identify the record, and therefore the person who is legally authorized to act for that minor or incompetent person would be the record holders, regardless of title, because they are otherwise qualified as agents or officers of the record system. Legal representative refers to the court-appointed or otherwise qualified person, again, regardless of title, who is legally authorized to manage and settle the estate of a decedent. The term excludes an executor and an administrator. This is why you have a power of attorney as a living will, giving a power of attorney to somebody else who can make those health decisions that are based on a beneficiary will, stating beneficiaries and the execution of the estate matters once that person passes away, or that living soul passes away. Two distinct things. Legally incompetent means a court has declared an individual to be incapable of handling his or her business affairs. So as long as you identify as an individual, which means a natural person, which means as long as you identify as a fiction, you will be treated as an individual, incapable of handling his or her business affairs, because you're still identifying as a person. Linked account means an account that is a separate account from your primary account but connected to your primary account. You use your primary account as a portal to open and access the linked account. And remember what happens when you open that other that you had opened that account earlier, and transfer those minor securities, and that closes out that minor account, that other linked account. So when you're opening a new linked account, you give it a new name. It's no longer Keith Orland Little. It's Keith Orland Little Estate Trust. Marketable Treasury securities. Whether they market them or not is one thing. So if it's a marketable Treasury security, but you offer it as a gift for $250,000 as a note, or a bond that is negotiable and transferable. So now they've established $250,000 in credit. They give that credit back to you, and now they can use that paper bond and negotiate it for a future date as an investment and sell it for $255,000 or whatever, however they do that. Keep 25,000 of it. Sell the other 225,000 for futures. Do that in a year. Oh goodness, they made another $25,000, and do that year round. Repeat it, circulate it. It's okay as long as I'm no longer held liable, because it's my marketable Treasury security, and I've already got my credit back for it. Means I can no longer hold any obligation. That's what the credit and debt system is about. If there's a debt, then somebody holds an obligation, and that obligation is to a credit. Again, that belongs to the people. The more the United States goes into debt, it means the more they're negating the credit comes from the people. And transferable, that is, may be bought and sold in the secondary market by secondary owners, so long as they release the primary obligation and liabilities. Indemnification, hold harmless. Minor means an individual under the age of 18 years. The term minor is also used to refer to an individual who has attained the age of 18 years but has not yet taken control of the securities contained in his or her minor account. What do you think, John? It's telling us that we've got to do something.
Yeah. I mean, every time we sign our name for someone else, like every time I sign my name, right, for the caps variations, that's called an autograph. And I'm getting tired of making them.
Yep. So understand what it's saying here. It says Minor means an individual under the age of 18 years. The term minor is also used to refer to an individual who has attained the age of 18 years, but has not yet taken control of the securities contained in his or her minor account. And instead what we've done is we've undertaken the decedent in the form of a state office, performance of the functions of public office on state business. And we are placing liabilities on the public record. We are considered spendthrifts through that. And we are held liable and accountable to the administrative courts for such things. Understand how that system works and take control of those securities and remove them from that administrative system and place them in the proper judicial hands and make sure that you can execute or conduct, as we see here, your own affairs appropriately as to maintain your own person. And greetings, Jesse. How you doing tonight? Glad you could join us here real quick.
Sorry it took me so long, brother. It slipped my mind. I got caught up in listening to this John Michael, and we just taking my mind places, and I kind of just slipped my mind. I apologize about that.
No, that's all right. We're going to have plenty of time to get together in the back room and discuss this here. And which brings up, I've got some codes I dropped in Facebook Messenger for you. I want to get together and do some private review on that stuff.
All right, sounds good to me. I like going over new stuff and learning something, seeing different angles.
Well,
Especially when we're talking about the post office.
Well, yeah, and I've expressed before I didn't do a whole video on it, but I believe I've explained that the obligation of the United States Postal Service as it relates to the capital is equity. And that's what it states in their own codes.
Oh, wow. It's equity, huh?
Yep. Obligation of the United States Postal Service shall consist of the equity in the United States, and that's going to be my next video.
Wow. All right. Well, I should be getting some exclusive equity here soon, considering what I did.
Hopefully. And that's why I say I told them about you briefly before the video, before we started streaming. And, it's people like you doing certain things that, reviewing and researching this material together with people like you brings those dots together. And I think we are going to be able to put together a 1, 2, 3 dot setup.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just basic fundamentals of trust law and a little bit of banking and understanding, how business works, and then getting our agency in place and conducting business. To me, it's just about learning how to do adequate business, really.
Yeah, it's nothing personal. It's just business.
That's it. I'm not out to get nobody. I'm just trying to do business, and I'm trying to have good faith and clean hands. And I want to, my new motto is that's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And I say that meaning that if we want to save our country, we can't fight against the powers that be. We just need to surrender. Okay. Most people are like, oh, surrender. But no. See, you don't put it in the wrong context. We have to understand the context of what that surrender looks like and what happens as a result of doing these things.
Yeah, and that's that repatriation I was talking about. I told them both. It's a matter of getting the birth certificates and surrendering, and it's not a matter of expatriation. It's a matter of repatriation, which is bringing back the truth. And then, the equal consideration is you have to pay for that stuff with their fiat currency. So now you get to play equal consideration on the credit side and issue an extension of credit.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've always issued your extension of credit, and that's really nothing new, except for now you're empowered and understand that who you really are inside of that construct.
Right.
Because you've just been giving away all your authority your whole life and not realizing that the authority stems from you.
Yep. And so we're finishing up here tonight with the definitions from 31 CFR 363.6. What terms do I need to know to understand this part?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, it says one has reached the age of major, or one is a minor. A minor is one who's yet to be the age of majority, but yet to take control of those securities in the minor account. So we have to understand that it's not us that's really the minor, in my opinion. Okay. Now, we're falling into that little category because of a lot of presumption and assumptions and contracts that we've signed and things that we've gotten onto along the way that led up to a series of conclusions that says, okay, well, upon further inspection, we can't find anything else that says that you're not this, right? But really, it's talking about the account itself and your relation to it.
Yep.
Not really you being the minor, but the account is in a minor status. So another way to put it, I would think, would be in a general capacity, right? Instead of
Yep.
having the capacity to special drawing rights, right?
Yep.
You don't have special drawing rights. See, I always wondered what my dad would say. Oh, these people have special drawing rights. Well, now I really understand what that really means. I think he thought he understood what it meant at the time, but he doesn't have the knowledge that I have on said subject. So now I really understand what it means, what special drawing rights are. He was just referring to the bankers and their rights. Well,
Yep.
he didn't realize he was a banker.
Absolutely. That financial institution, that organization, individual, they're all presumptive, and we've got to break that. And Caitlin says, if you're talking about surrendering the birth certificate, it's pointless unless you give it a value, endorse it back, and give it value for them. And that's the same thing with all of these official documents. They really don't have any value except a presumptive value. And when that happens, they end up putting certain things on it to give it a value through their investment system. This is the court registry investment system on the administrative level. And that's what we're avoiding now, is we're learning a different
that
process.
there are certain certificates. Now, there's not a public value on a birth certificate, right? But if you were to really look into it and get certain numbers that are attached to that thing, you can see, like with a nubitant report based upon a certain certificate, you can see how much is actually there and have a value. But here's the thing, there's more than one person who's invested in this estate/trust. Okay, so to think that you're going to just get it and walk away with it all is kind of silly, because I hear people say to me all the time, "Oh, I looked up my Q-SIP number and I saw how much my birth certificate is worth." Like they're going to get that 16 billion that supposedly the Q-SIP number said. I'm like, come on, man, be realistic. Okay, you have a percentage as a beneficiary, whatever that may be, but not all of that goes to you.
Right, and we got to remember, when it comes to this beneficiary stuff, it's all about the cup welling over. It's always a spiritual principle. The knowledge is the true benefit, and in that knowledge, these accounts and stuff, they're just credit accounts, and we're not to use them to just go haywire overboard like he's talking about $16 billion. No, we only use them for our necessities still, remaining humble and using them as a tool to teach others how it works so they too can do the same thing and provide for their own. And again, this is a repatriation thing, alleviation of that public debt, and that is a truer sense of prosperity. It's not a superabundance and not caring about the United States and other people. Like I said, when I get this down pat, I'm not going to, it's going to be me and my companion going to have a house, we're going to have our car, blah, 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 the minimum necessities as required for life. We're going to live comfortable, of course, but we're not going to have all the excess. We're not going to have an extra house. We're not going to have two cars. We don't need one each. I don't go anywhere without her, or she doesn't go anywhere without me unless it's absolutely necessary, and that just is public transportation. Other than that, it's for the common good. It's not for me. And the common good, the best perspective is the next generation. If we truly want to prosper in abundance, then it's to go forth and multiply. And therefore, even in today's context, there's a certain limitation to the number of people that would benefit. Whereas if we look in the context of tomorrow and that generation, that number enumerates even greater and greater as time goes on. And that's why knowledge is important, is it has to carry through time. We have to quit hiding it.
I agree. You know, with great knowledge comes great responsibility. You know, my thing was at first I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have this, and then I realized, well, you know, I have a duty to my country because if it's overran, okay, and we lose it, then what's the point? None of it's gonna matter anyways. And all this hard work I've put in to try to, you know, just to get to this point for my redemption and to have that standing, I also owe a debt to the people around me in a sense that, you know, well, not a debt, but an obligation. I feel I'm obligated that since this has been bestowed upon me, that, you know, I'm in a position to actually make a difference, you know, so I'm going to donate a large sum to the border because if we don't have a secure border, we don't have a country. We don't have a country. I don't have an estate. You know, none of it's going to matter at the end of the day, you know? So I want to be in honor. I want to do what's right for the people around me. I want to honor my mother and my father. I want to do my service to my fellow brother and to my country and to make sure at the end of the day there's something left there for my successors or my heirs, you know, and for the posterity of everyone else in this country, you know, instead of being run over and next thing we know, we wake up completely conquered on the land that our forefathers conquered, broken, homeless because corporations took everything we own.
Yep. Hey, I lost my screen. I'm going to drop out and be right back. Hang out and I'll be right back. Okay. Okay. So welcome back. Welcome back. And like I said, that's 31 CFR 363.6. You guys can feel free to go read those the rest of those definitions. Pay attention to zero interest indebtedness and how that works. Like I said, that's the like an advanced deposit credit account where you can draw from that account to a zero balance account that is balanced out every day, and that's what we're looking at. It's an investment in that definitive savings bond that you can use the credit system to put in, and it should just zero out every day, establishing a principal interest for its use. It's a use-of-flux system. As it relates to is the credit account an unlimited amount? The way I explain it is, I see somebody out in the parking lot and their car is broke down. They need a charger, and I've got a battery charger. Their system is not running. They're in debt. They're in default. Okay. I'll be right with you, Star Fox. So I go out and I use my battery charger to charge up their car. Once I charge up their battery by connecting to their car, you know, like a linked account, and I extend credit into that and get that currency flowing. That currency is still going through my charger, and I get my credit back, and I should be able to take my charger back. That's simply what we're doing. We're charging up their system. Oops, looks like we lost him. So we're charging up their system with our credit. It's ours. They can't have it without us. Gross domestic product, Farm Credit Act, that's all from agriculture and stuff that the people do. The people are the true national treasure. And as true national treasure, they have to give credit where credit's due. And people have to understand, you're due that national credit. You're the national treasures. But you have to learn how to step up to that treasurability. You have to be able to understand what to treasure, and that is a process to make sure you're not being abused. Star Fox says, what was that report he just said? A nubative report? No. It is, and let me see here. It should come through Heckle-Bus, I think. It is the live numadent antecedent. Numadent. Okay, the live numadent you need to get first. And then you can get the decedent, numinant. Live obviously stands for the living man. It's the living record. And then the decedent is like a probative record. It's the decedent record. And you have to get the live numinant first. If you get the decedent numinant and then try to get the live numinant, there's something in the process that says they can't give you the live numinant anymore. Numinant. This is the enumeration at birth, and this is why this is so important. The numinant, numerical identification, NUM, short for numerical identification, num ident. It's the numerical identification. And with that, we're going to close out for tonight's stream. Jesse, like I said, I appreciate you dropping that stuff in Facebook for me. And like I said, we will get together on the private side and go over this information I've got lined up here. I'll get with you sometime tomorrow morning.
All right. Sounds good. I'll be up. I'll be up and about. Sit me up. Let me know what's going on, and I'll talk to you then. All right.
You bet. Sounds good. And in the meantime, you guys know, I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. I say I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you and have a good night. We'll be back again the next time to talk about this some more as relates to the Postal Service and its obligation in regards to correcting these records and why they should be holding that title to collapse that trust and bring everything into equity. And they're the ones that have the obligation of equity. So may God bless you, and we'll see you again next time. Have a good night.